Let me tell you something they don't mention in those pristine meditation halls or those books with lotus flowers on the cover. The moment after awakening, when reality splits open like overripe fruit and shows you what's been hiding beneath the skin of existence all along, there's this crash. You wake up the next morning and the ceiling looks the same. The coffee maker still gurgles its familiar song. Your phone buzzes with the same notifications from a world that suddenly feels like it's been drawn in crayon. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, hands trembling, trying to reconcile what had shattered inside me with the fact that I still had to brush my teeth. They call it enlightenment, but nobody warns you about the cosmic hangover. You've just seen through the fundamental illusion that you've spent decades building, brick by careful brick. And now you're supposed to go to work. You're supposed to care about the traffic jam. You're supposed to maintain this character you've been playing, this elaborate fiction of being someone, when you've just discovered there was never anyone there to begin with. It's like waking from a dream and realizing you were never the person in the dream. You were the dreaming itself, and now you have to pretend you're still the character because everyone else is still asleep, and they expect you to know your lines. The first days unfold like living in a double exposure photograph. You stand at the grocery store and you're picking up milk, reading labels, making decisions about whether to buy the organic eggs or save $3. This is happening. Your hand reaches out. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead. But simultaneously, you're aware of something else, something vast and formless that's watching all of this through your eyes. You exist in both worlds at once, the mundane realm of appointments and bills and small talk, and this infinite ocean of consciousness that you've suddenly recognized yourself as. People ask you how your weekend was, and you open your mouth to say, fine, because what else can you say? How do you compress infinity into casual conversation? You discover this peculiar terror that nobody mentions in the spiritual texts. They talk about liberation, about freedom, about the chains falling away. What they don't tell you is that absolute freedom is paralyzing. When you realize there was never anything binding you, that every limitation was self-imposed, that you've always been free to choose anything, that choice itself becomes almost unbearable. I spent 20 minutes staring at a breakfast menu once, during those first days, watching my mind try to grab onto preference, try to find solid ground in the question of pancakes versus an omelet. Every choice reveals itself as arbitrary. Every decision exposes the groundlessness beneath it. You see through the game, but the game still demands you play your turn. Then comes the impulse to share it. You've discovered something fundamental about the nature of existence, and surely your closest friends will want to know. You call your sister. You meet your best friend for coffee. You try to explain what happened, and the words turn to ash in your mouth. How do you use language to point towards something that exists before language? How do you describe color to someone who's never seen? You watch their faces carefully arrange themselves into expressions of concern or polite interest. They think you've had a breakdown. They suggest you've been meditating too much. They change the subject, and you realize you're speaking from an experience that cannot be transmitted, only recognized. The revelation that changed everything for you sounds like word salad to anyone still dreaming. The loneliness of this recognition settles into your bones. But something else starts happening. The mundane transforms. You're washing dishes, and suddenly, you're not washing dishes. You're watching consciousness interact with itself through the medium of hands and water and ceramic. The soap bubbles catch the light, and you see the entire universe reflecting in their surface tension before they pop back into nothingness. Everything becomes impossibly alive. The tree outside your window isn't just a tree. Its existence expressing itself in this particular temporary form, and you're another form, and the space between you is also form, and it's all one continuous motion, one seamless expression of being. People around you go about their business. and you're moving among them like someone who's learned the secret behind the magic trick, but still has to sit through the performance. Around day 12, 13, something shifts. The ego comes back, but it's wearing a new costume now. It returns disguised as the awakened one. You catch yourself thinking about how you're not thinking. You notice that you're becoming someone who has achieved not being someone. The spiritual pride is so subtle you almost miss it. You start seeing others as asleep, as unawakened, and there it is. The whole apparatus rebuilding itself with new materials. The separate self you thought you'd seen through is reconstructing itself using enlightenment as its building blocks. You've become the awakened person, which is just another character, another role, another way of being someone. The irony tastes bitter. The game is more sophisticated than you imagined. Here's where I want to pause for a moment. If what I'm describing resonates with something in your own experience, if you felt this particular flavor of confusion and clarity mixing together, I'd love you to join this community we're building here. Not because I need your subscription, but because these conversations, these explorations of what it means to be conscious, to be awake, to be human, they matter. And I'm curious, after everything I've shared so far, what's the word that comes to mind? Not a description, just one word that captures your response to this journey. Drop it in the comments. Let's see what pattern emerges when we collect our individual experiences of the ineffable. Week 3 arrives like a question mark made of doubt. Did you really wake up, or did you simply go mad? The difference between enlightenment and delusion starts to blur. You lie awake at night wondering if you've simply convinced yourself of an elaborate story. If the ego is so clever, it's created this narrative of no ego. If you're just lost in another, more subtle dream. The doubt cuts deeper because you can't prove anything. You can't go back and check your work. There's no authority to consult. Every spiritual teacher you read seems to be describing something slightly different, or maybe the same thing in such different language you can't tell. This sacred doubt, this holy uncertainty, it turns out to be part of the process. The willingness to question even your awakening, to hold it lightly enough that it might not be true, this becomes its own kind of opening. The mind that insists on knowing might miss what's here. Then the loneliness deepens into something else. You recognize that you're everyone. You look into people's eyes, and you see yourself looking back, consciousness meeting itself in temporary disguise. Every conversation is you talking to you. Every interaction is the universe investigating itself through these elaborate costumes of separation. And this recognition, as beautiful as it sounds, carries its own particular isolation. Because if you're everyone, then there's no other. There's no true connection, because there's nothing separate to connect with. Your partner kisses you, and you taste your own lips. Your child laughs, and you hear your own joy. The intimacy is absolute, and the loneliness is also absolute. They exist together, inseparable, and you learn to hold both without trying to resolve the paradox. The days start blending. You're awakened in the morning, making profound observations about the nature of reality while you pour your coffee. By afternoon, you're completely identified with your worries about money, with your irritation at traffic, with your hunger and your tiredness. You forget. Then you remember. Then you forget again. The pendulum swings and you start to panic. Maybe you lost it. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe you did something wrong. But slowly, very slowly, you begin to understand that this oscillation is natural. Humans aren't meant to remain in constant transcendent awareness while navigating the practical demands of physical existence. The forgetting serves a purpose. You couldn't function if you remained perpetually dissolved in infinite consciousness. You couldn't hold down a job or maintain relationships or remember to pay your electric bill. The game of being human requires some degree of identification with the character. The wisdom isn't staying permanently awakened. The wisdom is learning to move fluidly between the perspectives, To play the game while knowing it's a game. To be someone while knowing you're no one. By day 31, something settles. Not a permanent state, but a different relationship to the whole thing. Awakening reveals itself not as a destination you arrived at, but as a recognition of what you've always been. It's not something you achieved. It's something you stopped overlooking. The extraordinary becomes ordinary again, but the ordinary now carries the weight of the extraordinary within it. You go to work, you have conversations, you experience frustration and joy and boredom and wonder, but somewhere underneath it all, barely perceptible most of the time, there's this knowing, this quiet recognition that the whole show is happening within something vast and aware and utterly at peace with itself. You're playing the role of your life while simultaneously being the stage, the lights, the audience, and the empty theater itself. They ask me sometimes what awakening gave me, what I gained from this disruption, this cosmic earthquake that rearranged my internal landscape, and the honest answer is nothing. I gained absolutely nothing because there was never anyone here to gain anything. But also, everything changed. The fear didn't disappear, but it loosened its grip. The need to be right about things, to defend my position, to prove my worth, it faded like old paint in sunlight. The urgency to figure everything out, to nail down reality and make it behave, that desperation quieted. What remains is this strange mix of caring deeply about life while holding it all very lightly. It's taking the game seriously while knowing it's a game. It's loving people fiercely while understanding their consciousness wearing temporary costumes. It's grief and laughter and confusion and clarity all mixed together in this beautifully messy experience of being alive and aware. The thing about awakening that surprises me most is its ordinariness. After all the dramatics of those first days, after the cosmic hangover and the failed attempts at communication and the ego's comeback tour, it settles into something so simple it's almost boring. You're here, now, aware. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else, all the spiritual concepts and the meditation techniques and the stages of enlightenment, they're just fingers pointing at this obvious, always present fact of being. You don't need to achieve it. You can't lose it. It's too simple to grasp and too obvious to see. It's the eye trying to see itself, the knife trying to cut itself, the fire trying to burn itself. The looking is the thing you're looking for. So, what does life look like now? Pretty much like it did before, but somehow completely different. I still get annoyed in traffic. I still worry about things that probably won't happen. I still laugh at stupid jokes and cry at sad movies. The personality continues its performance. But there's this space around it all now, this breathing room, this recognition that whatever's happening is happening within something that was never born and will never die. The waves still move across the ocean's surface, but the ocean no longer mistakes itself for just the waves. It knows itself as both, the motion and the stillness, the form and the formless, simultaneously and always. And here's what I've learned about sharing this journey. You can't give someone your awakening. You can only tell your story and hope it resonates with something they already know but haven't yet recognized. You can only point, clumsily, with words that inevitably fall short toward this thing that's too close to be seen and too obvious to be found. Everyone has to walk through their own doors, face their own cosmic hangover, wrestle with their own ego's comeback, sit with their own sacred doubt. The path is lonely, and it's universal. It's uniquely yours, and it's everyone's. Both things are true. Before we part ways here, I want to invite you into this ongoing exploration. If you've made it this far into this conversation, something in you is listening. Something in you recognizes this territory, even if you haven't walked it exactly the same way I have. Subscribe to this channel if you feel called, not as a transaction, but as a way of saying yes to this inquiry we're engaged in together. and I'm genuinely curious about your experience. What has awakening looked like for you? What did they not tell you? What surprised you? What's still confusing? Share your story in the comments. Let this space become a meeting place for people navigating this strange journey of waking up while still being human. Let's stop pretending we have it all figured out and start sharing the messy, beautiful, confusing reality of what this actually looks like. I'll be reading every word you write. I'll be meeting you in that space where consciousness recognizes itself. Until the next video, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think.